Welcome, welcome. It's been a long time. Been a pretty long time. Excited for NXL Vegas. It's close by, so that's nice. For some of you, it's in your hometown, which is good. Let me actually move my chat over here so I can see it better. And then we will jump right into it. Admittedly, I didn't get a chance to look at this layout before we started. It's been kind of a busy day, and it's actually going to be an even busier day. I'm recording something with Go Sports today, hopefully, so just trying to get prepared for that. Caleb, let's go. SVP, always looking forward to these. Thank you very much. Perfect timing. Search this up to see if you've done this already. No, you're here live, man. What's up, Alexis? Thank you so much. Okay, so let's look at the layout. First off, the very first thing I want to touch on is these beams. So snake beams right here. I noticed on the guns up layout is a little different than what the image is showing, but I actually think that's more of just a difference in dimensions with the picture versus what guns up has. And I've said this before, I don't know which it'll be at the event if these beams are moved further out towards the outside of this, or the inside of the Dorito, excuse me, as opposed to where they are now. So I don't think it'll make that big of a difference. It might, but as far as what I can tell, everything is where it ought to be, given the grid lines that we're seeing on guns up. So I did double check. Everything looks good. But first things first, the obvious elephant in the room is this asymmetrical, or I guess like kitty corner symmetrical layout design, which I think is the only time they've ever done this is in the Lone Star Open. Was when they tried that. And maybe they've done more and I just can't remember. But in any case, you have Dorito side over here, Dorito side over here, and then snake side over here and snake side over here. Very obvious. To me, the biggest challenge with layouts like this from like a divisional player's perspective is always just keeping track of everything, because now you run into the issue where you have, you have S1, S2, S3, or snake 1 through snake 3 or whatever, and then you have the other side. So my initial reaction to that is probably... my initial reaction is to just make sure to not get too worried about like the names of bunkers in terms of like Seattle, Sally, Scorpions, whatever. Don't get too worried about having so many S names that it's like, okay, that's our snake side versus we're going to do snake 1, snake 2, snake 3, whatever on the other side, or vice versa. So I think doing like a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 on one side versus a snake 1, snake 2, snake 3 on the other side might make more sense. So maybe it's like our snake side is the 10, 20, 30, 40, and their snake side is the snake 1, snake 2, snake 3. That might be the easiest system to implement here. But I'm not playing the layout, so I don't actually care that much. You guys can figure that out. But okay, so let's look at the backline. We'll do the backline, and then we'll do the right side, and then we'll do the left side, and then we'll do the middle. And then we'll do breakouts at the very end. And I will be looking at chat periodically, but I just want to take these sections one at a time. So obvious first gap that you see here is pretty prominent on, we'll call it the right side. And in fact, we'll just call this the snake side. Because there's even a freaking Dorito over there. We'll call this the snake side, which just has 1 Dorito, versus the other side, which has 3 Doritos, and we'll call this the Dorito side. So first gap towards the snake side's pretty big. We'll see what it looks like as we try to run through it. You have an inside shot as well here, but I don't think anybody, maybe except for the Pro Division, would be shooting this inside shot, and that's still going to be super hard. You do have some shots over the top of this brick if you play off the box, it looks like. Or is that... Okay, so they are there if you're behind the can. So there's shots there. I was just curious if you can get it more over the that mini W. But then looking from our runner's perspective, again, the home shooting towards us if we're on our feet is kind of dangerous. This shot right here. If we want to shoot at a runner going to the corner, there's obvious shots there. And then as we get further out wide, we are blocked. Interestingly, we are blocked from the back center. So this first gap is really the big one that we have to survive. And if we get low enough, we can actually go underneath that. we can go underneath that paint. So I would imagine that the front, I'd imagine that like the attacker on the snake side, if you get low enough, I mean, again, against a really good team, you know, they can always hit these shots, but I imagine you have a pretty decent chance of surviving any bunker you want to go to on the snake side, at least along the back line. And maybe if people push up the middle, that becomes a little bit more of a concern, which we'll get into. I'm just getting ahead of myself, but I'm looking here. If you run up the middle shooting towards the snake, it's definitely a lot riskier for you to make wide moves out there. But really that first gap is the only one that I think we're really worried about from the back center, it looks like. And then obviously if anybody pulls up, you know, if they're running and gunning the whole way to this temple and coming up over the top, this is definitely very dangerous for you. The counter pressure to that is definitely the home shooting at this guy. So that gap's pretty big if you're getting shot at by the heads up dude. So big thing for you number 2s on the snake side is to practice your running and gunning for sure. Is my camera centered? Okay, good. So then getting into the corner, not a true tape. I imagine you could still probably threaten each other with some shot. Oh, it's not even mirrored. I forgot. So you definitely can fight each other. I actually think that the Dorito side in this particular matchup from the can towards the Doritos, I think the Dorito side has an advantage. Just because you have one point of aim, essentially you have like one position you can play in the corner and they have 3 that they can shoot you and pressure you from. Which we'll look at more in detail as we look at the Dorito side. But like, you know, you can be in any one of these spots. You can be on the inside and outside of these 2 bunkers. There's just a lot of places for them to be able to shoot at you, whereas you really only have one angle to come out of, whether it's high or low, it's pretty much the same. And then you obviously have like a really harsh inside wrap, but that's probably not going to happen often. Well, maybe. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at this very quickly, but I'm just thinking maybe this inside route is the safest to get up to this Dorito. But we'll look at the snake side in just a minute. Let's look at the Dorito side backline shots. So again, that first gap, this is a pretty tight gap, honestly. I don't think there's any way you shoot the runner. I think you shoot the number 2 if you're going to shoot for this shot. But it's probably safer for you to just aim in this position because you'll be hitting somebody trying to go out to the Aztec. Yeah, if you shoot anywhere in this box, you'll shoot the number 2 going out to the Aztec on the Dorito side. You of course can shoot back at the home. I'm not sure that's a great idea. There's not any cross shots, it looks like. I will say that's not true. There are cross shots over the top of this brick towards the number 2 on the snake side and vice versa. So if you're running out to this Aztec, you can shoot over the top of the brick as well and pressure each other that way. It's definitely worth it, and I would, as much as possible, try to figure out where that shot is and then just practice it over and over and over again. Anybody who is going to be playing these Aztecs, more than likely the number 2s on either side of the field. I mean, it's important for everybody to practice those shots, but I know we have limited time, given that we only get it for one weekend. I thought they were going to change that, but so yeah, definitely shots you can threaten each other. And if it were me, those would be the first shots I would put and then shoot heads up. Just depending on what I was trying to accomplish. It might be the case that we want 2 guns shooting one way, and in which case, this person running out to the Aztec can definitely put shots heads up to shoot somebody running wide. But again, same sort of scenario. We come out here and we shoot towards the runner, guns up the whole way. Biggest issue is going to be that home player shooting us, right? And then pretty standard angles here, honestly. It's tough because you can't, in this position, you can't stop him pushing. You can't stop their snake player from pushing all the way to the 50. Maybe you might be able to get a bounce shot in on this little wedge right here that could bounce down and threaten somebody like in their pack, but it'll be hard to know if that's viable. But you'll find out at practice. You'll find out at the layout. But that's the first thing I would look at, just to see if there's a bounce shot that exists there. Same would be the case for the Dorito. Just see if there's any shots that you can hit here that kind of pressure somebody. I mean, you could still probably crawl below those shots, but always just good to know. And then if we go out wider to the Doritos, now we're looking at the other angle towards the can from this perspective. Lots of open play for the 1s against the 2s in what I'm looking at right now. So If I imagine the number 2 playing this position, I'm the number 1 in the corner fighting this guy trying to get into the snake, or trying to get into the Doritos, whatever. Big open gaps here. And it's easy for me to write this off. Like, this is a huge open gap, but, I imagine there's some kind of play here that we could take a look at. It's just, I think the obvious route, unless you tiger, like, let's say you kill the number 2 that's in front of you, your best bet of moving up the field is going to be probably on the inside, almost always. So, but as you can see, the challenge is going to be that the home player can definitely shoot paint at you. So I would be very careful about that. I don't even know if you can really avoid that paint. You probably could. You'll have to find out at practice, and you'll have to find out at the event. But you might be able to just avoid the paint from the home and possibly the Aztec. The only trick is going to be that if the Aztec player shoots right here, it's kind of hard to see. If the Aztec player shoots right here, that's on that front left side of that mini Dorito, it's possible that those balls bounce and stop you from moving. And in fact, I should have set up that other paintball tool I've used where you actually are shooting paint to see. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video on that. So take a look at that bounce shot. But interesting. So lots of open air for heads up stuff from the number 2s, crossfield stuff from the number 2s, and really like I guess on the snake side, there's three decentish gaps. This one's really tight, honestly. Then there's this one and this one, obviously depending on what they're wanting to do. And then opposite side of the field, I wouldn't probably bother shooting this. But you obviously have this huge gap here that you could shoot the number 2 at. So pretty big. And then you could shoot for anybody going to the corner afterwards, but they'd have to be pretty high for you to actually threaten them. I feel like everything else is pretty obstructed. So anyway, that's the back line. Let's take a look at the snake side here in just a second. Was hoping you'd come out with a video for the MVPS Winter Classic that just happened. That World War II looking field, crazy. Yeah, so I know I got a lot of messages about the MVPS layout. I actually coached people on that layout, and I was reached out about it. So my new policy is changing as far as how I'm going to do like field layouts and stuff. But we don't need to talk about that here. But I do plan to cover all layouts. But my tentative plan is to make it for members only of the YouTube channel, just because it's a lot of time and it's hard to do all that when like the MVPS layout review videos get like 600 views. So I think in order for it to make sense for me, I have to put it behind some kind of paywall. So, but all the NXL stuff, all the NXL layout review videos will all be free and accessible. So, because that just makes sense. Wishing there was captions, watching during work meeting, but no headphones. I'm sorry. It's a live stream. I wish there were too. Or calling right and left callouts, R1, R3, L2. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a really good idea. Like the vid to support. Yes, thank you. These are facts, my man. If you guys are watching this live right now and you have not hit the like button, please do so. It helps the channel out a lot. It helps the live stream out, so thank you. Oh, I love the snake design. I'm a snake player. Really? I've heard some people say they didn't like the snake, but let's take a look at it now. So if we run out, we're going to start wide and then move in on the snake side. So if we go to the corner, who stops us? So every time I look at either side of the field, as you guys know, my biggest concerns are who do we have to fight to get into a spot? Is there anything that prevents us from moving further? And what are the free kills that we get for moving up the field? That's kind of like how I approach any side of the field. So the first thing is, if you get low, you can actually avoid a lot of whatever's going on in front of you, it looks like. So anytime I walk these sides, any side of the field, I'm making an assumption that I am trying to move immediately after the breakout. So and any of the videos that you've seen me make on my channel, I always talk about that there's this window of opportunity that you're allowed to make secondary moves in pretty much most breakouts, which is that immediately you either need to make secondary moves essentially in the breakout, where you go to your primary and immediately to the secondary because no one's shooting you, or the lane is free, or the gap is free rather, or you need to delay in some way getting up those gaps. So you hold in a spot, whether that's a dead zone or a primary bunker, and then paint gets drawn elsewhere, whether that's towards your front players or whatever the case is, towards the middle, and then you move through those gaps, or you fight your way, right? So you just put people in and then move. So my assumption is that the opponents that we're playing against in this scenario are going to be there in their primaries. So in this case, if I immediately slide to the corner and I get low and wrap, the only person I'm really worried about, or the only people in this initial angle that I'm worried about, is this Aztec and the laydown door. Mini W. So I'm not sure how common it'll be that people will play this Mini W. We can take a look at that in a second. But definitely the Aztec is the first guy I would be worried about. So if you get really comfortable at getting to that corner and then wrapping on that dude and shooting him, and shooting, whether that be just barely at the edge of this or over the top, that's a really good shot. It's hard to sometimes get that practice in before the event because people don't own their own fields, for sure. But if I had to challenge my way into a spot, I need to know that. I need to know this is the shot I have to take, okay? If I get lower than that, or if that guy dies or he's not there for whatever reason, there's actually nobody who can see me as I low wrap here. Okay, which gives me the advantage of surprising somebody. So now if I look, what would stop me from getting into this first snake bunker? I'm going to ignore the Dorito for a second. If in the breakout I make this move, the only person that would kill me, assuming that I go low enough, would be the home player shooting my way over the top. So the home player could still shoot me. But the home player, in order for them to shoot me, would have to be shooting at me already. So if I wrap here, what this tells me is that if I wrap here and I don't see anything, or I kill this guy, then all I have to do is wrap here and shoot paint just to get that guy to flinch or make sure he's not looking my way. And then I immediately run and dive. Okay. The only other person that would probably kill me is if somebody ran up to the middle off the break. So if somebody just ran straight up the middle looking snake way, and I got to the corner. So like, imagine I'm the opponent, right? I'm running up to the 50 and... Oh my gosh, wait. Oh, okay, my brain. This like cross mirror stuff's going to kill me. So, okay, so if I run up to the middle, whichever route, doesn't really matter. But if I get up to the middle, as I'm making this next move from the tower to the brick, let's say I didn't stop, that would be the case in which I would also die for taking this bite. So I typically always recommend people play as though there is a middle. Sometimes you have to make these quick reaction plays based on knowledge that you have about how your opponents like to play the field and based on what you suspect they're going to do. So if you play against a team or you scout a team that likes to push up the middle really early on, or even in a delay, I would probably be a little bit more hesitant to make this move. But you also have to be aware that if I make this move a lot, that's going to be the response from a lot of people, right? If I decide, okay, every time I go to the corner, I go for this play, then people are going to know that and they're just going to send a guy up the middle anyway, and it's going to stop this. So... okay, we've taken care of that. You could also, if you wanted to play safe, you could just come up to here and take the bite into the Dorito one, and now you're in a pretty good spot, right? This is where you could then play as though there's a middle. You can imagine that he's staring at you and then not move until proven otherwise, right? And it doesn't have to be that you wait for that intel to come to you, but you need to play as though even if you beat two people in front of you, if you beat the attacker and you beat the guy supporting him, you need to wrap and check off the middle before you make this bite. Because if you do it without looking, you're just going to get blasted. So again, this is a situation where in the very beginning of a point, we're talking like the early game, maybe to the start of the mid game, we're talking first 30 seconds. You are probably not going to have somebody in this Aztec and someone in this bunker, okay? Probably not going to have that. We will see, but it's probably going to be the case that you will have somebody in one of these two spots, okay? And one of these two, you'll have somebody somewhere out here, possibly, and then you'll have somebody in the middle in either this bunker, this tower, or the 50, or the wedge, whatever, right? But you're going to have generally one person in each of those sections. Okay. So if I come to here and I fight my number one and I see that he is in this baby Dorito, it doesn't really matter, but let's say I see him. I know he's there. Okay. I wrap and I instantly see this dude. And I see that he's in the Aztec, okay? And I come back in and now I'm holding dominance on the Dorito guy. I now know where at least the number one and the number two are, okay? That's at least a relatively safe assumption. And now I will say, if you don't see the number 1 and you wrap and you see a guy here, then you don't know where the number 2 is for sure. You just know where the widest guy is on the snake side, or your snake side, and he's at the Aztec. So that's where, if you notice that people are pulling short, and this is true for any layout, but especially on this one, if you notice that people have pulled short and there's nobody wider than this Aztec, then you have to, an instant alarm bells have to go off that something is happening in the middle. So just be aware of that. That's where you really want to play super careful. And if you have somebody who's holding this guy, let's say it's his mirror, like the Aztec is also shooting at this dude, you can actually let go of that job for a second and then just kind of peek around and see what's going on in the middle and check off if this guy's staring at you. You know, if you see a barrel, a loader, or if you see paint flying from the tower towards the Dorito, that can give you a little bit better of an idea as far as what's going on. So I don't know why I'm spending so much time on this, but I feel like trying to get into this snake might be hard. Who knows? We'll see. But if you can master that initial, task, then you can probably get into the snake pretty safely and pretty consistently. Okay, so now we are in the snake. We get to the snake. We're looking inside just to see if there's any free kills. There are no free kills. Lots of stuff that's available to me, though. So getting into the snake 1, we can already start to pressure their snake corner. Very confusing. We can pressure their snake corner. We can pressure the tower on their snake side. We can shoot the middle 50 guy. And if we come further, we can shoot their snake 2. Is that what that is? No, that's the juice box in the middle. Okay. So nothing. I wouldn't say anybody's playing that. Okay, and then this wedge is what I would say. This wedge, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. I think we're going to see plays getting, where people get there very quickly and set up these traps for the snake side. So, and then speaking of, that's going to probably be the hardest thing to get past. So it would be easy for me to just say, just check off the 50 brick and then you're good to take the bite into the snake. But you can actually see that if they go past that point, they can actually set up the trap further up the field and then surprise you that way. So that's pretty unfortunate. And I wonder, I think if anything is going off internally to say careful for the middle, I would probably just head check this very quickly. And I would make sure that, get a teammate to get into this wedge, have him get super tight, make sure he can see the inside of the Dorito, and then get really good at getting low and then inside head checking the spot before you take this bite. Okay, this is assuming you have the luxury of time to do this. But if you're like, hey man, I'm controlling the guys in front of me, I'm ready to bite, I'm ready to go, then just get low and then head check this and see if that guy's looking at you, because then you'll know, okay, I'm in trouble. And if he's not there, then you can just wrap and check this middle guy off, and then you're fine. Getting up to this spot, then, is there anybody that can stop us? That's the next question. So I would say that this Dorito guy can definitely stop us, especially if he's standing tall. This Dorito guy shooting at you from here can definitely stop you. And I would say that if they're stuck at the Aztec, like we looked at before, it's possible that they shoot this spot just on the front side of the bunker, or I would say even lower perhaps, and then it might bounce or drop into this little zone you're trying to crawl through. But that's one where I would definitely try at the at practice to see if there's anything you need to worry about with that. And in fact, I'm actually looking. Is there anything that can shoot at that Snakeside Tower? Sorry, give me just a second. That's pretty far. Okay. I was curious to know if there was anything, if I was in this position and I was looking inside, I was curious if there's any shots that come in on this tower that could threaten you. I think it's too far. I think it's too flat, so I don't know if I'd worried about that too much. Okay, so assuming that we beat the Dorito guy, the guy that's in this inside Dorito, and we go below any paint that's coming our way, which would just probably be from the Aztecs. The home can't see us. The wedge should not be able to see us, then nothing else. Getting here, any free kills. So if there's a player playing high on our Dorito wedge, our Dorito side wedge right here, I mean, it's a pretty equal battle, to be honest, because he can hide again if you shoot at him and you miss. And I don't think he has any particular greater dominance over you than you do him. The difference here is that he is way farther up the field than you are at this point. So They're pretty overextended, and assuming that this is a 5-on-5, this would be an easy thing to just like shoot at, avoid, call out, shout as much as possible, and then wait for a second and repressure, right? Until your teammates go and run them down or you kill them or whatever. I would say that the tower is a pretty free-ish kill. It's probably not 100%, but this shooting at this tower right here would definitely suck for that guy. So I think that's a pretty decent angle to take. And then maybe at the tournament, this gap is a little bit bigger. So look to see if you can actually see the Dorito on the snake side, and if you have any inside shots on them. You do have the ability to like stop that player from moving, which could be pretty difficult for them to break out of, but I don't think that's really worth it, especially if they're the attacker. Like I just don't see a ton of value in stopping here to do that. The only exception to that would be if you can't move forward. But if you wrap a little bit further on the inside, which for me, this is a scary wrap. This is where this isn't like a free angle you can take to gain intel. This is an angle that you need to be prepared to fight somebody or shoot at somebody the moment you take this angle. But it would be this next one where you now see the wedge, the tower that's standing tall, and all of the Aztec on their snake side. So this is another one where if you have the ability to set up targets, get really comfortable at what it feels like to set up for this angle so that you're not exposing yourself, and then come out strong and putting paint down rage to hit those targets very, very accurately. If you can practice those reps as a snake player, that'll be really valuable. Wrapping farther, assuming that you're safe to do so, you can pressure this. You can pressure the home. You also have an insane gap that you can hold against. An insane gap that you can hold against their player, their back center. Oh, there we go. My cable keeps cutting out. Against their back center player who would try to break out onto the snake side. So, and you have to an extent some of that control heads up. It's just that you obviously have the mini wedge that's blocking this angle. So, and I wouldn't wrap any farther than that. Like, you don't need to take this angle against the Aztec. You can just ignore him. So, it's still possible that there is a bounce shot that comes in from this Aztec somewhere. Especially, I'm actually looking at it now. Over the top might even be a better angle for them. Let's take a look. Inside is a good angle, but I don't think you can do that. So I was just looking to see if there's a bounce shot. So try it at practice. See if you can shoot a shot on the front face of that juice box or lay down door or whatever you want to call it, and see if there's shots that pressure somebody enough to not move. But I would suspect that you probably can just make this move ignoring the Aztec. And if that's true, then like play as though there isn't an Aztec. Or if they're in the Aztec, you can just completely ignore them. The challenge will be this if A then B play for that player is if you get into the snake and they're the only one holding you, they are either going to go out to the Doritos or they're going to come to this mini W and pressure you. So we'll look at that again more as we get to the inside of the snake, but just be careful about that. You can probably go low enough to avoid it, but you might still get shot in the pack. So actually, in fact, I'm pretty sure you would get shot in the pack, so just be careful about that, especially if they stood over the top. If you can also pause, and this is now where we're talking like free kill territory. So I think you will likely get this kill if there's somebody in that Aztec. They'd have to be playing behind their gun on that side of the field to not die to you. Maybe they actually could probably get pretty tight and survive it, but really, like these shots here are pretty nasty. The only thing I would say is you actually don't need to stop for these because you'll get them if you go to the next bunker anyway. So I would probably just actually ignore all of that. And so really, in my mind, it doesn't look like anybody can stop us except for the Dorito. Obviously, if somebody's in the wedge in front of us, or the laydown, the mini W. So you can ignore pretty much every other bunker. Maybe the center tower, actually. Man, that sucks because that's now 4 bunkers. We'll call it 3. You'd have to worry about this one, so 1, 2, and then we'll call this 3. Those are 3 areas that you'd need to worry about if you're trying to push up, but you can ignore all of the rest of this stuff. You can ignore all of that. So probably what I would do is I would obviously come here, check off whatever's going on in front of you. You could then come up over the top. That might be the safest thing, and just see what's going on in these 2 spots. And then depending on what you get from that, then you can go. Otherwise, if you have to, you can just low wrap and get that intel as well. And then just crawl all the way down. Okay, so now is when you really get into like free kill territory. So now you're in this wedge. I would say that Aztec is for sure dead. The Dorito is not dead for free, but you'll probably hit him and you'll probably shoot him in the head before they react. There's a lot of stuff that you can do there to surprise people. You also, you actually probably have to check off even more shallow. So if you come here, I would probably check off the 50s first, because now look, you've got their juice box on the snake side. You have this 50 wedge or 50 brick, and if you back up a little bit, you can actually see, depending on where they're playing, the wedge on your side. You've got the Dorito one, or the Dorito on the snake side, their Aztec on the snake. I don't think you would see much going on in this this laydown, or I keep saying laydown door, mini W, and then the tower for sure. So this bunker is amazing, which to be expected, right? You're past the 50-yard line. That's typically what happens. And then the tricky part is going to be, for me at least, if I was playing this position, the tricky part is that typically in a snake bunker, you know, when you've crawled all the way down to their side of the field, you have an expectation of what is going to happen in front of you, right? Like it's a mirrored layout. So you know where the bunkers stop, where, you know, the players that are stopping you from progressing and that sort of thing. The challenge is that there's 4 bunkers here that are in front of you that could be posted up waiting for you. And you also have to take this challenge from a really bad angle. This is a terrible angle. I talk about it all the time. This angle sucks to snap shoot from and gunfight from, especially against Dorito players. Dorito players have some of the most comfortable, natural gunfighting angles next to Aztecs in the game. And so this is a really, really risky angle for you. If somebody's posted in that close Dorito, this sucks. Somebody's posted up from this inside Dorito, that sucks. And then if somebody's just trying to play sneaky and this baby Dorito posted up to you, if you're careful and, like, let's say you go to check off these 2 spots and you're like, okay, everything looks good, and then you go to wrap, that baby Dorito is going to kill you. So this is a really tough place to push past. I would say that getting here is pretty straightforward, but pushing past this point to like close out the game is going to be pretty tough. So really there's not much I can say about this other than just like get really comfortable at what those angles look like. If you want to be an effective attacker, this is true for any layout. If you want to be an effective attacker, you need to be able to visualize what the bunkers look like through the one that you're playing. So that way, when you set up, immediately when you snap, you're shooting paint before you even see and register what's in front of you, because it's not about shooting at what you see, it's about shooting where you think they're going to be. So coming out with your guns blazing, already like super dialed in accurate shots is going to be what helps you win this engagement if you need to fight this. And I'm sure that the inside stuff is kind of risky, but I was going to say, I'm sure there's like some highway run you could do, but okay. So now we're going to do, I'll take a look at chat in a second, but now we're going to do this channel for the snake side. But Captain 45 US, what's up, man? It's super interesting. Very interesting layout. Austin Slays, what's up, man? Love your videos, dude. Thanks for tuning in. So what are we calling the Dorito snakes? Dude, the running consensus right now is R1 through R3 versus L1 through L3. The biggest issue is that if in your mind you're thinking right and left because you've said R and L, it's going to really mess you up when you rotate sides. So I'm not sure that's the best play, but I'm already missing the World Cup layout. Oh, I know. The World Cup layout was a lot of fun. Fab plays paintball. Love the breakdowns, man. Going to be an interesting layout for sure. Absolutely. Hey, Incredible PB. What's up, man? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, for you guys new joining right now, please be sure to hit the like button. It helps out the stream a lot. So, okay, let's do the inside snake channel. So if you're tuning in live now, we did the backline, we did the outside snake, we're doing the inside snake lane, and then we'll do Doritos, and then we'll do middle, and then we'll do breakouts. So this will probably be a little bit longer than an hour, but I don't think anybody cares. So lots to talk about. Okay, so if we were to pull short, come to the Aztec, play here, we've decided that obviously we can see our mirror. Interestingly, we cannot see the inside route that we would take to do some kind of if A then B hold. We've talked about this before. So you can go low and take this inside route relatively safely. And again, within that early to mid game transition. Okay. Biggest challenge is going to be anybody shooting you cross field from the snake can. Well, I don't know what that arrow is, but anybody shooting you cross field from the snake can would catch you. if you did this without looking, or if you did it just instinctively, right? So be careful of that. And again, if I were to just to view myself, like imagine I'm the number 2 on the snake side, and I want to stop their Dorito attack. This position is okay-ish to do that from, especially if they go to that mini Dorito. We'll call it the Dorito corner. If they go there, I have a lot more control over this player than if they go here. Admittedly, I could still probably control them a fair amount because I can shoot paint low enough, like over the top of this beam and low enough to threaten them from just crawling on the outside. But when it comes to like anything on the inside routes, gonna be super hard for me to see. Okay, so if I have any reason to believe that they have passed this gap without me knowing, let's say they've come on the inside of this Dorito and they've gone up to this wedge, then I have a few options. I can either come out to the can, which is a very like standard paintball thing to do. The challenge you see right now is that I can't really control this person. I don't really influence them in any meaningful way, other than the fact that I'm just wide on them, right? So they can't wrap super freely. But if I feel like my initial instinct would be to punch this middle channel to then get angles to directly challenge them. So then that would be pushing up here. So let's imagine that they stopped at this Dorito wedge. Can't see anything from this position, but I can now see if they are in this wedge wrapping or trying to do anything on the inside and like wrapping more and more on the inside of the field. So again, not a great bunker to like hold somebody out of, but it's a decentish bunker to pause at for a second. And if we come up over the top, we can get a little bit more creative and get maybe a little bit better angles. There might be a shot I have here that bounces off on the outside that threatens them from moving up to the wedge freely. So definitely look for that. Excuse me. But then if, wow, this bunker is awkward to get to. But if I, play my blinds right, I guess I'll say, and I get up to this tower, now all of a sudden, if they're still at that Dorito 3, I have full control over them at this point. Now, admittedly, this is a gunfight for you. This is you post up on them and then you hopefully catch them as they peek, whatever. But if they discover that you're here, this is a really challenging spot for you to hold them from because you don't really have a lot of angles to work with. So you can get lower. So if they put you in and you drop low to your knees, you can shoot at them on the outside. You can't fully stop them anymore at this point, but just be careful. Like if you're in this position and you shoot at this player and you don't kill them, you need to be very careful at still holding this position because for anybody who practices snap shooting, this is a really easy shot for them. So just be careful about that. And then obviously the biggest risk you run into is that now you're super exposed to the snake side. So obviously standing up tall presents a bit more risk than being low, but in either case, you're going to need to be in this bunker. So not super convinced that the if A then B, like if they get here, then you move here, routes on the inside are that great. But we'll look at, I think the middle might give us a bit more angles to stop the snake, to stop their Dorito. I don't know. Whatever. But okay, so let's look at this wedge again. So we come here, this mini W, I keep saying wedge. So I actually really like this over the top angle here. This gives you quite a bit of intel. You can drop some blind shots in over top of this juice box or lay down door that would surprise somebody. But for me, it's just, I like gaining this kind of intel. You can post up here for a second and shoot. You could even wrap. Come on. You could even wrap here and shoot towards the home, which is awesome, and the tower. So obviously you would want to be careful coming up here shooting and then wrapping because they see your paint, they might see your barrel, whatever. This dude would probably blast you. But this is a really good angle to get intel from, okay? Not a great bunker to hold somebody in the Doritos from, but if they are stuck, for whatever reason, if they're stuck at this Aztec, you can hold this gap forever. Like, this gap is great. I shouldn't say forever. They can definitely challenge you. But this is a great gap to hold them in from if you manage to shoot the widest player. So let's say, for example, we get a player into the snake. We're here. We tiger one dude. You have a couple of options. You can come here and hold the gap. You can stay here and hold the gap, or you can come to the corner, okay? The corner, I think, is pretty good. Again, like how them getting to the wedge is going to really suck for you, but getting to the corner, the nice thing about this is that if your player dies, it's a nice easy funnel for you to get into. The challenge is that you have to challenge this player, this Aztec player, to keep them from moving. Okay. That's kind of a disadvantage in my mind because I don't want to have to directly fight somebody to hold them, because if they're desperate enough to get out of this hold, they'll just fight you until one of you dies. So it ends up becoming a 50-50 in that case. The other thing that's nice about this, I will say, is you can see the inside route from the Aztec to the Mini W. If they make that route, you can see it. And just generally speaking, you can communicate with your teammate, you know, a little bit better. You get a better idea of what they're doing from this spot. And of course, you can see the back center, which is awesome. But if you come here and you contain them, this is a much harder position for them to fight you from, because if they come up over the top or they wrap too harshly on the outside, your teammate can now catch them. Okay, he can either wrap, kill him, come up over the top of his bunker, whatever the case is. It's a lot harder of a spot for them to break out of. Two big disadvantages, however: you cannot see if they go up the center anymore from that position, and you also can't fill into the snake if your teammate dies. So those are the biggest issues from this in this position. But you are a bit safer from whatever's going on the other side of the field than you are if you're in the corner. So the tower, yeah, I'm not sure. The tower is actually pretty tough. That's a pretty exposed position, to be honest with you. And I don't really think anybody's going to play this in any sort of meaningful way. Any of these like center-ish bunkers that are small, I feel like people use as ways to close out the game more than they do to actually like play. So I can't imagine anybody would go here in like a 5-on-5. The only exception to that, I will say, yeah, and even that I don't think is very good. I mean, I was going to say, I feel like the only exception to this is if you're in this position and your teammate's here and you've blown out the snake side. I could see a situation in which, like, let's say in the breakout, you get Tiger 2 on the snake side. I could see you coming here, diving, and then looking cross. And the reason for that is because I could see you killing somebody, filling in late to the middle, or just locking down the other side of the field. The biggest issue is that now, if your number 2 is looking this cross field shot, your number 1 is responsible for holding the containment, and that's not great because he's probably going to be head down crawling. Or you're putting that responsibility on your number 3, which can be hard to communicate. So admittedly, I don't love that strategy, but I just try to make sense of any bunker, right? It's just hard. And we're not going to look at the middle yet, even though the wedge is technically on the same channel or lane. So we're going to ignore that for now. But let's go over to the Dorito side. Robbie, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Hit that button, baby. Will you be doing some of the live play mapping with Go Sports again this event? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Based, what's up, buddy? Yeah, I will be doing telestrations. You know, every time I go to events, I always say like, hey, if you see me, like, please feel free to stop and say hi. I love the chats. But I discovered very quickly that I'm like in the Go Sports booth, like the little shipping container that they bring. I'm in that thing like almost the entire event, which sucks. It's fun to do the telestrations, but it's just like, I just don't get a lot of time to just be in the venue, which is unfortunate. So, but if you ever hear anybody talking, if you ever hear anybody saying like, man, those lines that those guys are drawing, like those are so cool. If you guys would be like a big homie, just like tell people, hey, that's SVP, like that's SVP Paintball. that would be awesome. So I appreciate that. Incredible PB. Thank you. It's going to undergo some improvements, so hopefully it'll be better. But okay, let's get to this Dorito corner. Okay, so we talked about this before. Unfortunately, you can't entirely ignore what's going on heads up. So you do have to worry about this guy right here. If he's in this Dorito standing tall shooting at you, this guy will ruin your day. So this guy kind of sucks because he actually prevents you from taking this inside bite. Like, you have to fight this guy to put him in. The nice thing is that if you put him in, so let's say, for example, the setup against you is somebody's here and somebody's here, and the Dorito, we'll call it Snake Dorito, and the Snake Aztec. If they're in those two spots, you can, depending on if the bounce shot exists from the Aztec, if this shot exists, then this sucks for you. But if it doesn't, then you can actually isolate this Dorito guy and fight him like by himself on this inside shot. The only thing that will kill you is if this home player is shooting your way already. So if you're running out, so let's say at the box you hear home shooting Snake or whatever. So you know, okay, home's not shooting at me. And you run out here and you also don't see paint coming from the middle of the field as you run out to the corner, then I would come here and almost instinctively look inside and shoot at this guy. And then if I don't see anything, immediately take that bite. That would be what I would do. So I don't know if I would play this bunker to do anything other than to like get into the inside route quickly. because you can't stop the heads up stuff, right? You can't stop anybody progressing towards you. And you don't have any control cross field, and you don't really have any good angles inside. So, I mean, again, like there might be a niche case in which, let's say you kill the number 2 and then you're like, okay, well, the number 2's dead. I'm going to take a massive bite towards the Doritos. And certainly that is possible. I shouldn't say this as though this isn't a good play. It is. It's just, it's a huge risk, right? So if you come running and gunning, let's say, for example, okay, you run and gun, or you're running with your heads down, which you always should do, or excuse me, heads down range. If you're running here, you come and then you see the guy slid to here, okay, and then you see this dude get killed and walk off. If you see that happen, the first thing I would do is I would stand tall on my feet. I would shoot a bunch of paint right here to kill the guy filling out from the home towards this spot, and then I would take this bite and dive. That's again in the breakout, okay? Because if you do this, you can see if the home decides to punch up the middle. You can see if he goes that way. You also protect yourself from getting caught in the open by shooting that gap that will stop the home from taking this bite for free. You might even kill him, who knows? But you shoot that gap. So like slide in, I saw the intel I need, come up over the top, shoot strong, and then take this bite into this Dorito. That's a way that you can gain big ground really quickly, but it comes only if you kill the number 2 on the snake side. I don't even think that if they pull short, like if they, let's say, for example, there's only one guy that you see and he comes to this spot, I don't think you can do this because now there's something going on in the middle that's just too unknown to risk this. But again, if you do that and you come here and there's only one dude in front of you, then I would just immediately challenge this, you know, get into freak out, or maybe, you know, own this spot for a second, wrap, maybe shoot at the home to get into flinch, and I would come here as soon as possible to get to this wedge. As soon as you get to this wedge, post on this dude, surprise him, whatever, and now you're in a great spot. Otherwise, come here, go on the inside. Okay, what stops us here? So that same Dorito stops us, and I would argue that you guys are, if there's somebody playing this mini wedge and you're playing this Dorito, you guys are in very similar positions, but for them, they can't do much from that mini wedge, whereas you can do a lot from this Dorito. So I would actually argue that you are in the defender position more so than they are, meaning that it's probably not the case that they're going to stop you from moving, but that you are going to stop them from moving. So be aware of that especially if you go tall. So if I stand tall in this bunker, if I stand tall, I can probably stop this dude from moving. Which means that it's not just a matter of, okay, if nobody's shooting at me, I keep moving up the field. Because if you can't get to this wedge, it's probably not worth it for you to push past this guy. Okay? The only exception to that would be if the person in the Aztec has a decent hold on this person. So if the person in the Aztec can stop them, then you're free to move. But I actually feel like the Dorito is that Dorito 2, we'll call it, is a pretty decent spot to hold them out of the wedge from moving. Okay? Now, you could do some if A then B stuff. So, for example, let's say you're in this position. They're in the wedge. We can't see it. It's off screen. Here, I'll just fix that really quick. So they're here. You're here and here. You could actually set it up so that this dude holds this wedge guy, which is a better shot than if the Aztec has a bounce. And then this guy comes here and goes here. So that is definitely an option. It might even be a better one because this Dorito is just really strong. The Dorito is really strong because you can threaten you can threaten the attacker, including if anybody's playing in the corner. So you can threaten the corner guy, and you can threaten the number 2 behind him. And if you wrap even further, you get a lot of intel on what's going on in the middle. So, and it's a big bunker, so you can survive in this bunker pretty easily by just getting low. And you obviously have access to good bunkers to attack. So there is an inside route that you can take. So let's say, for example, you've lost this dude. You don't know where he's at. He's somewhere past the wedge or at the wedge, the mini wedge that is. You can actually get low enough, and now nobody can really see you in this very position. No one can really see you. So you can actually crawl. I can't do it in the Guns Up app, but you can actually crawl all the way into this beam, assuming that nobody Assuming that nobody's in this Dorito 3 Dorito 3 looking crossfield and killing you. So if you take too long, then this isn't safe. But if in the breakout you slide here, you're trying to get up to the wedge really quickly, you can take that route. So, but I actually really like this inside Aztec route. So, especially if there's somebody wider than me. If there's somebody wider than me and I come here, I don't really have any influence on whatever's going on in the snake. I can challenge a corner player. I can challenge this guy. I could challenge the Dorito player, but he doesn't need to shoot me. He can just ignore me. But coming up over the top, I can gain intel on what this guy's doing, what the Aztec is doing. Can't really see much else, honestly. I'm in a really good position, though, to run down the wedge if they pushed to our wedge. So that's something to also keep in mind. But otherwise, if I've got a Dorito guy holding their snake dude, and then I challenge this guy, and I know that the middle is in the back center or in the tower or something, then now all of a sudden, oh, maybe I'm safe actually from the home. The home shouldn't kill me. But I can run here and boom, instantly slide and get to this wedge, and there's a guy behind me now supporting me. So not a bad spot. Let's look at this Dorito 3 really quick. Just trying to think of this bunker in like the early game. I mean, so to me, I would do this if I had somebody controlling the snake in front of me. But if you come here in the breakout and you instantly look inside, the best thing you have is catching the home player, doing a delay from the back center up to the tower. You'll catch that guy every day. You have some intel as to if somebody gets to the Dorito 1 or Dorito 2, and you can definitely stop somebody going from the Dorito 2 to the 3. You can obviously stop somebody going up the middle as well. This would be a really good spot to shoot at somebody who would make those delayed pushes, right? It's just really hard to get to this bunker without somebody in the middle seeing you do it. That's, to me, the biggest issue. So, but if you have somebody controlling the guy in front of you, this is not a bad angle to just gain some intel, put some pressure down, whatever the case is. Otherwise, if you play heads up, it's kind of the same shenanigans where you're like, you can't really see each other very well, but you still need to be aware of the fact that you're going to be shooting at each other and it's going to get very close. So getting into the wedge then, just from this perspective, again, you have this really big gap from the Dorito 2 to 3, but I think holding gaps works if you create a setup around it. So I don't ever suggest front players get to the 50 and then just hold something cross field. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you can do it for a certain time. You can do it for like 5, maybe 10 seconds, especially if you don't have anything to do in front of you. But honestly, most of the value that you get out of getting into these bunkers is getting those free quick kills and then wrapping and applying outside pressure. Assuming you don't just like give your body away for free, right? However, if you create a setup where your whole goal is we're going to get to the 50, that guy's going to look cross field and lock down everything on the other side of the field, and then we're going to have 1 or 2 people behind him supporting him so that we don't just give up the pressure that he should be applying to the people in front of him, then you certainly can do that. And there are some layouts where that makes a lot of sense, for sure. But it's just that plan works only when you kill people that run through those gaps. But if you're in better field positioning, like if you're in the 50 shooting cross field with a setup to protect them and they don't run through those gaps, then you're still in the driver's seat and you then need to just go play the heads up game. Like you're the one that has to do something. They're waiting for you to run through their gaps. They're not going to run through yours. So that's kind of the reason why I don't love... we actually saw that with like Infamous last year, where if you guys remember, I don't know if it was the Sunshine State Major or which field it was, but there was those 2 center bricks that were slightly offset from the middle, and Infamous literally it was against Hurricanes. Infamous literally sent 2 players to those 50 bricks and they crossed up, but they were the ones that had to win the point. And they stayed there for like 10 minutes or some crazy number. It was just like hilariously long that they stayed there and just waited for Hurricanes to push through. But Hurricanes were in no position. They did not need to push through those gaps. And so then when they eventually put that together, then they're like, okay, we need to do something now. And then I think they lost that point, or maybe they won. I don't think they won that point. So anyway, This wedge is just, it is what it is. I don't know. There's not really much to say. The outside wrap shots suck because of this angle, but this is where you're going to get a lot of production on the heads up stuff. So my biggest advice to you, again, be familiar with what these shots and angles look like. Also know that if there's nobody in the Aztec, you can actually, so let's say, for example, there's, oh, hello, microphone, please. Let's say there's somebody stuck here. Hey, Matt, what's up, buddy? Thanks, man. Let's say there's somebody stuck here in the corner and there's nobody in this Aztec. You can actually ignore those two guys and crawl. You won't be able to ignore anybody in the tower. You'll die to that. But assuming that you tigered the number 2, so you know it's clear, then you can actually ignore those 2 bunkers and get here, and now all of a sudden you have a bunch of free kills. So, okay, let's look at the inside snake. I guess we kind of already did. The inside snake really just stops when you get to here. And again, really great intel over the top. And then you come up to this wedge. So this wedge has incredible containment. Now that I'm looking at it, this wedge has a super good containment on their snake side. It's a really good gap, actually, because you're protected from the nonsense that you get when you're coming out of this angle. So you don't have to worry so much about being really, really tight into that spot. But now you have a big, big gap to hold. So if you can tiger the widest guy and make a plan to send somebody up to this wedge, you can lock this side of the field out forever. The only exception will be if somebody pushes to the 50 and gets here and then comes and runs you down like that, right? So, okay. Let's take just a second break. And then we will look at the middle and then do breakouts and stuff. So will do, man. We love the good behind the scenes work. What you're doing is making the sport way more legitimate from a professional broadcasting standpoint. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall for the meeting where they created this layout for sure. Yeah. Dang, this is a huge gap. Nice find for sure. Dr. Pepper break. I really need water. I had a big work interview. So just a quick side tangent. Anybody who's watching the stream, please hit the like button. I had a big interview for a company out of Utah that I was very excited about this morning. So I've actually drank nothing but caffeine and a little bit of water. So, okay, let's do the middle. Then we'll do breakouts. Okay, so the middle, pretty straightforward shots you have here. You can delay here. I didn't see a ton of like gaps to do. So you can see, so you can come here. One thing you can see is you can come here, take a knee, and you can shoot for the corner. Truthfully, I don't know if you could get here fast enough for the paint to then travel and hit somebody going to that corner. I feel like that's a little too quick. And honestly, if you want to take that shot, you may as well just run baseline, because now you can keep your gun up running and you don't have to kneel down. So there is a crossfield shot towards the corner from the Aztec on the snake side. I mean, if they're playing the corner a lot, try it. Otherwise, I really think your first shots, if you're going to shoot anywhere off the break going to either Aztec, it should be over the top. So for those of you who are tuning in late, I talked about this. Shoot over the top and then shoot wide or shoot heads up. But I would suggest shooting over the top for the number 2 running to the opposite Aztec for both sides, really. Unless you need to get to those bunkers quicker. So the one thing to note is this Aztec is farther out than the Snakeside Aztec. So the Snakeside Aztec has the luxury of shooting a bit more paint and a bit more accurately, whereas the guy going out to the Dorito side Aztec does not have that luxury. So this guy's probably going to have to go quicker than the snake one, but we'll see. Okay. Punching up to the center tower. So the nice thing is that if you want to stop them from getting to a spot, and actually, interestingly, you have this gap right here. You have a really good crossfield shot gap for, in between the home and that tower in front of you towards the Dorito Aztec, which again, this shot is more wide because it's a longer run for them. So this is actually a pretty good shot in my opinion. And you can keep it as you run up to this tower. So you can keep it here and then you can gain the intel to know, okay, did they cross this gap? Did I kill somebody? Like there's a lot of information you can get from just shooting this. The nice thing is, if for example, you're shooting here and then you see somebody dive here, but then you see somebody walking off this way or even this way in the breakout, okay, we killed their wide guy and I didn't see anybody else cross this gap. It means that I'm safe to punch. So now what you can do is you can come here and you can dive into the wedge and now you can hold this and they're stuck forever. And I like this a little bit more than I like this because this is certainly there. you have this, but this is a tighter gap for you to hold, and you're more susceptible to being run down. So if you're wanting to hold their snake side, I would probably just do it from the wedge, just because you're a bit safer. And really, if you do that for a long time and nothing's happening, then you can certainly get creative in the center 50 brick. But I think you're a lot safer to do it from the wedge. So I actually really like that crossfield shot. I think it's pretty good. And then let's look at the snake side crossfield shot. So you obviously have up the gut shots you could take. So you could shoot those, but crossfield, the gap is a bit wider, which is nice because this is a pretty tight shot. It's a pretty tight shot. I'm not sure it's really worth it. But if you do it from this angle, now the shot's a bit wider. And now you can really threaten the snake attack, the snake runner before he even passes the wedge. So the challenge is going to be, though, that it comes from a pretty far out stance. I'm getting called from Maddie. 1 second. Custom. I'll call you back in just a minute. Okay, got to wrap this up. Shooting this shot, definitely there. And if you keep going, again, you have the same sort of situation where you get a lot of intel and information on what's going on, whether that be that somebody crosses the next gap or you kill this dude that's running, whatever the case is, you've got a lot of really great information. So coming here, you can then stay on this job and hold it. If you killed somebody, if you didn't, if they passed, the really only value you get out of this is just shooting for this Dorito gap, but you have to dump paint through it, which kind of sucks because then you reveal where you're at. And then pushing up to... Okay, well, let's look at the 50 brick now. So getting to the 50 brick, looking snake way. We talked about this first gap against the Aztec. Obviously, the assumption is that you have the gaps in front of that, so you have the one from the mini W to the tower if you wanted. You also do have this gap, so you can shoot here, and what you could do is use the information that you so you can hold this gap, look this way, and if you see somebody run through that, then you can shoot for the Dorito shot. The problem is if they go to the corner, right? You're not really in a spot to stop the corner. You can float back, so you can float back here, but now all of a sudden, whatever's going on the Dorito side, you're just like completely in the open to that, so be careful. And then if you look Dorito way, their Dorito side, I mean, you've got a Dorito 3 you can see. You've got the inside of the wedge that you can see. So I don't love this, honestly. This kind of sucks for you. It's a lot safer for them to be in that snake side wedge than it is for you. So don't love that angle. But then if we wrap farther and we're on our feet, so let's assume that there's nobody wider than this Aztec because we either killed them or they just pulled short. You actually control this guy pretty decently. You can't see them if they go super low, but you can get a pretty good idea if they moved or not based on if the bunker moves or whatever, call outs and stuff. But if you kill 2 people out of the snake side and now you're in this 50, well, the wrap is really brutal for them. So you control this, you wrap, you shoot. If nothing's happening, then you get low, crawl here, and now all of a sudden, boom, get a bunch of free kills, whatever's going on here, and then you come and play this outside, and now you're just dominating this guy. So I'd probably look inside first before you do this, because if you come here and immediately wrap, you've now put yourself in a pinch position from the home and this guy. So you'd actually really want to check this off first. So there you have it. Get Maddie's take on the layout. Elon Musket. Mormons are apparently the best salespeople. That's what we're told. Okay, Maddie's asking for some clips and stuff. We're recording a show later today, so. Yes, I'm gonna do breakouts. Okay, so let's do breakouts and then we'll be done. So. I mean, if you guys, most of you in here have already seen how I like to do breakouts. I don't generally like to just give you, this is what you should do and this is the situation you should do it. I kind of feel like giving you the tools to make those decisions for yourself is more important, just because if you understand like the levers involved, then you can make really informed decisions, which I think is great. So as far as, let's talk about the snake side attacker first. So I personally didn't see a ton of double up opportunities. There is a double up. So you can double the back center as a way to give space to either side. The advantage to doubling up, it's safer. You have more guns up. And it also allows you to delay up the middle, typically. So oftentimes what you'll see in a double up situation is you'll have the two from one side or the other. Oh my gosh, my microphone. You have the two from one side or the other playing one side, and then the three playing the other. And then depending on how you want to support either side, then you'll see the punch. So one thing that we did see is the punch up to this wedge that's closest to you, which is your Dorito side and their snake side. This wedge is a great spot to hold them from, okay? Even if they're in the snake, this is a good spot to be in because them challenging you in a gunfight, they are in a worse position than you are, despite the fact that your angle is really bad in that bunker. So I feel like this is a key bunker that we will probably see a lot of teams trying to play, personally. And the other reason for that is because it has immediate access into the center 50. So if, for example, you hear that somebody's in the 50 and you're in this spot holding the gap, it immediately gives you the ability to get low, crawl, and come run this down or whatever, right? So I feel like this bunker is really good. And therefore, I feel like what we're going to see is either people coming out to this Aztec and working their way into that, or we're going to see people doubling the back center, and that the number 2 is going to be the one that pushes up into this spot, okay? The other thing that we noticed is that the crossfield shots towards the snake corner are really good. And so, for example, you can have, really kind of depends on what you want to do, but you can have 2 guns safely looking snake way and just applying an insane amount of pressure. I guess, yeah, they're snake way. So what you can do is you can have your number 3 in this position shooting towards that Aztec player. Pretty good gap for them. And then your number 2 on the Dorito side is playing the snake side, your snake. And what they're doing is they're punching this side of the middle and then going underneath your teammates' guns. So they're running and gunning, shooting towards this same area. So you're going to shoot a little bit wider. And that you can either stop there based on what you're seeing, or you can push past and get to the wedge and then hold the gap. So that's, to me, that's a very viable breakout option. The biggest challenge is going to be that, and truthfully, this could be the number 2 on the snake side that's doing this. It's just mostly, what you're mostly concerned about is like spacing, like giving your teammates space to break out. And what you don't want is you don't want a situation where your number 3 is here, your number 2 is here, your other number 2 is here, and your 1's here, and then your 1's here. It's not very obvious in what I'm trying to illustrate, but you don't want to have one side of your field have like 4 players on it. So that can kind of give away that you're doing some kind of middle push. So just be aware of that. Give yourself some flexibility. This is a very flexible field. So like the rigidity of I'm the number 2 or I'm the number 3 is not as applicable here. But just know that double stack is an option. I would say that the default breakout, like anything, is going to be just this. That's the default, right? That's the safe option. And if A then B lever is that if they get past this position, this gap, then pushing the middle might be an option for you. Again, you don't have great visibility onto what's going on. And the more you push this channel in particular, the more you expose yourself to the snake side. That's the scariest thing. So just be careful of that. And then let's see. As far as where the number 1 goes, honestly, the biggest gap from the home that you have to worry about is actually this first one. This first gap, it's right here. This first gap and really right here is the first thing you need to worry about. And then after that, honestly, the person that could kill you is the run and gunner out to the Aztec. So it's a huge gap. So it's still possible, but just know that like if you pass that first gap, you're relatively safe, especially if you're really fast. So that does mean that you number 2s on the Dorito side need to be very good at running and gunning. So practice that a lot. Okay, so breakout stuff. Honestly, I really like that middle play that I showed up to the wedge. I also really like if you make a plan to send one of your players out to this Dorito, you can either double stack the home or you can just send your number 2 to the Aztec right away, and then they work underneath and get into this wedge. I really like that play. The advantage to this as well is that if you get to the wedge, you can hold cross field containment stuff while the guy behind you just stops the snake. So I really like this setup. That wouldn't, like I said, all that really happens there is you just say, okay, we need to get to this bunker. How do we do it? We can either go to the corner if they're not shooting for it and then take that inside route we talked about immediately, or we just send them to that spot right off the break. And depending on what we do there, it would probably influence what I would do with my number 2. So given that this gap is really big, I don't want to send 2 people through it if I can help it, which means that I probably would double up the home just to try that. I would double the home and give room for my snake or my Dorito attacker. And then it doesn't really matter which one I do. If I send them here or here, it doesn't really matter. And then I would push out here afterwards. You can, just to be clear, you can send somebody to this spot and somebody here. It just sucks that you have 2 people that are trying to run through a big gap. And that means that both of their guns are down. So the number 2 probably needs to get here quickly and not have his gun up. And I would try in practice, I would try shooting and see how that feels. But just know that over the course of the tournament, this gap is so big that people are going to start hitting that shot more and more. So if you only ever practiced this Aztec running and gunning to it, you're going to be screwed for when you need to go with your gun down. Okay, it's going to feel like it's a loss when really that's probably just what you should have been doing in the beginning. So be aware of that. And then, like I said, you have a few options here. Your number 1 can just be the attacker and keep pushing, or you can be the attacker behind them or in front of them. But I don't go to this corner. Don't go to this corner as a way to hold anything. If they are getting up to your snake side of the field, your best chance is to either get to this Dorito and therefore get to this one, or get to the wedge before they get too close. So if they're already here, I would try to get to the wedge as quickly as you can, because this is a spot where you can still stop them. Sort of-ish. But it's definitely a lot scarier for them if you're in this wedge than if you're in this Dorito back here. So... and then as far as the snake side, we're almost done. As far as the snake side's concerned, again, that first gap we talked about. So really try to experiment what these routes feel like just to go and take those bites. And I suspect that what you'll find is if these outside bunkers are safe-ish to get to, then it's probably the case that we're going to see people pushing up to the middle off the break. So be aware of that. But also understand that if we can make this player, which is the Dorito side Aztec, or Dorito side Aztec, if we can make this player's life really crappy by either killing them or forcing them to run with their guns down, it means that our snake attacker is safer. So, and the change up for them for that is going to be that they play the number 2 back here, and then the number 3 pushes with their gun towards the snake side, and that's where they make up that lost pressure. So I truthfully feel like that's going to be a lot of what we see is this double stack where we give space for our Dorito attacker to play kind of wherever they can safely. Oh, excuse me. They can play anywhere out here safely while our number 2 delays from the back center out to the Aztec and then, or maybe pushes out the middle. That's kind of what I feel like is going to happen. So hopefully that makes sense. I try to give, each pocket or each area an idea of what works best. I wouldn't plan to play this bunker like I'm going to play this bunker. I would just use this as a stopgap. I would get here, shoot paint, assess the situation, and then try to get out of there. So the safest thing to do is just get to the wedge. But if you kill somebody, you want to lock stuff down, you can definitely get here. So... okay, I know again, for some of you, it might be like, what, I want like a bunch of plays and stuff. Well, I'm not your coach, but hopefully at least you understand like the things that I'm thinking about. But honestly, the best breakouts are ones that develop over time, given more data. So I'm just giving you things to try and experiment with at practice. Really, the biggest things you need to discover is what routes are safe for me to take. What are high risk but high reward routes? What are routes that just are too risky and not really worth it? At least as far as runners are concerned, that's what I would want to know. And then as a number 2, my biggest thing are what are the different routes I can take to get to bunkers to stop those attackers? And then what can I do as a number 3 to support my players, whether that's to push up the middle and go silent, or take some kind of crazy route to relieve pressure for my teammates and stuff. So and again, you want to make sure that you're just using those kind of guide rails or guardrails I've talked about a lot. If you can help it, you don't want to risk both bodies on either side of the field. You do see that at pro play. Pro play is completely different. Divisional play, you don't need to risk both bodies on either side of the field unless it's not really that risky. If it's not really risky, go for it. But Otherwise, I typically like to only risk one body on either side of the field, and I'm trying to do it in a way that is the least obvious, and then I respond to what my opponents are doing from every point after that. So, but sometimes people know that about me when I'm their coach, when I'm coaching a team. So, but I use that against people. If I know that the people I'm playing against know my coaching style, there are times where I'll just play it super safe point one, and I'll let them kind of take those risks. So anyway, okay. Tell Matthew I'm proud of him when he talks. I mean, when you talk to him. Which way are the snake wedges facing? NXL posted something different. Who is right? They did, really? Man, I thought I checked that. Let's find out. They look like they're facing the right way, aren't they not? Are they not? They're facing outside. This shadowed edge is the outside. And then same with this. So these should all be facing the same way, or the correct way. Am I mistaken? I don't know. Somebody in the chat can let me know. Yeah, even the mini wedges are facing the right way. Thank you, Steven. Great analysis. Things to think about. Very interesting layout, and will be interesting to see what happens. Shout, I assume, out from Altitude Sickness, Colorado Paintball. Hey, what's up? This is what I thought as well. They're facing correctly. Okay. All right, guys. That's it. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you haven't clicked the like button on the stream, do it. It helps me out a lot. I will see you guys in Vegas. I might make another follow-up video after this weekend, but we'll see if I have the time because it's going to be crazy busy. So anyway, good luck, guys. I'll see you.